The human imagination is a powerful and terrifying thing. When you first start camping by yourself in the woods, it is capable of imagining all kinds of horrors lurking just outside your circle of firelight. Vicious animals, both two and four-legged, seem to be everywhere. I've experienced all these emotions and all these fears in my various years of camping by myself and with others. Today I want to talk just a little bit about some hints and tips to help you overcome the fear of camping alone. I'm going to be honest with you, I've been moto camping for a long time and I still get the heebie-jeebies when I camp by myself. I have developed some techniques for talking myself down or talking myself out of it. First one I would recommend for you, especially for your first trip by yourself, is scout the area ahead of time. Go somewhere you're very familiar with. Your first time camping by yourself in the woods should not be at some random place you've never been to. I mean, you can if you're into that, but I personally recommend, honestly, starting at a campground. That's what I would do to camp first. At the very least, somewhere that you know sort of what's around, so that when it gets dark and you can't see beyond your circle of firelight or whatever light you brought, you know that, oh, there's a river over there, oh, there's trees over there with the wind blowing them or whatever. So knowing what's there ahead of time will really help. Number two tip is go to a campground, like I said, with other people. You're not there to hang out with those people, obviously, and going to a campground has all kinds of disadvantages too. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but camping by yourself, at least for me, is a lot less nerve-wracking when I know there are other people around. I just feel like bears are less likely to wander into camp. Now, sometimes the other people are the problem, but at least in a campground, there's a camp host, there's some sort of authority figure there to handle those issues, which never actually happen. The worst thing that ever happens in a campground is some jerk is blasting music in his campsite, and I hate that. Honestly, if you're thinking about going by yourself, go to a campground you're familiar with, start with that. That will really help you begin to understand how self-sufficient you are and how all those scary noises are probably nothing at all. Another tip for camping by yourself is identify the source of your anxiety. Really sit down and think about what you think it is. If it's animals you're afraid of, my favorite thing is to do a little research. There's only been I think one fatal cougar attack in the state of Oregon ever recorded. So I like to think about things like that when I go out camping by myself and understand that if I hear a noise, it's probably a deer or a raccoon and not a cougar or a bear trying to attack me. None of those animals attack humans on purpose. It's very rare circumstances. A bear wants nothing to do with you. So if you're taking precautions, keeping your food out of your tent, just know what animals are around and make sure that you're doing what you need to do to keep them from being interested in you. You can sort of alleviate that fear. If your fear is other people, well, one, campground, just because there's a lot of people around, and so even if there's a bad one, there's probably less bad ones. But two, the best way to deal with human fear is to go somewhere where humans are unlikely to be. So for example, one of my favorite dispersed camping spots, and one of the first places I really started going dispersed camping by myself, is on a dead-end spur road. There is no reason for anyone to be driving down that road. It's not in between two places. No one's gonna drive by and see me. So if they're coming down there, they're coming down there to get to that campsite, and that just doesn't happen. I go to that campsite and I'll see firewood that I left there 6 months ago. So I know it's not a popular place. That really helps me alleviate some of my anxiety about people happening across me. You know, the bad people are not out there actively searching for you specifically. If something bad happens, it's generally a crime of opportunity. So you just make sure that you aren't an opportunity. You're not a visible opportunity. Whatever that source of anxiety is, identify it. That's the most important thing. Think about what it is that's causing you anxiety specifically, and then take purposeful steps to address it. Have contingency plans. Speaking of contingency plans, one of the best ways to alleviate your anxiety is just to be prepared. Wherever you're going, wherever it is, you need to communicate, let people know where you're gonna be. If you are anxious, go to a place where you have communications. Don't start out camping off-grid where you can't send a cell phone message if you need to. Don't take unnecessary risks when you're by yourself. Make sure you have a first aid kit. Don't do stupid things like drink and then process firewood with sharp tools. And if you're really anxious, one thing to consider is have an escape plan. If it makes you feel better, park your bike with the key in it so that it's facing out of your camp so you can get on it and get out of there as quickly as possible. Put your tent door facing the bike. Again, you're not gonna need any of these things. I guarantee you're not gonna need any of these things. But if it makes you feel better to have all those plans, a contingency, escape, whatever, set up, do that. Do whatever it takes to make yourself feel better so you know you have options. Another maybe less PC tip is have a couple beers after everything's set up and you're not using sharp tools and stuff, but that always helps me with my anxiety, especially after the sun goes down. Just in moderation, don't overdo it. Other techniques to consider. So if there's a scary part of the woods, if there's an open part, whatever it is that is the most anxiety-inducing part for you, set your tent up facing away from it. The psychological advantage of just not staring at the thing that's frightening you all night is massive. The flip side of that is also true. If you're concerned about people showing up, then set your tent up facing the road so that you can keep an eye on whatever perceived threat there might be in your mind. That will help you feel a little better. Another idea is to completely isolate yourself from the things that are causing you anxiety. So if every little noise freaks you out, put earplugs in. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, it's not a bear outside your tent. It's usually a raccoon or a leaf falling. So instead of waking up all night, what you can do is stick earplugs in and create this sort of safe, separate world inside your tent based on sensory deprivation. But earplugs will keep you from waking up all night, and you wake up in the morning and discover, maybe I didn't have anything to be scared about. Another option I like is I like to psychologically think about the inside of my tent as like a safe cocoon. Like I get in, I close the outside, I get to where I can't see anything outside, put my earplugs in, and as far as I know, I'm at home. There's nothing going on outside. I'm perfectly safe. Your imagination is your enemy. If you cut it off from the outside world, you're gonna find that you get through the night just fine. Nothing scary happens, and you'll gain more confidence the more you do it. My last tip for getting out and camping by yourself and dealing with the anxiety of camping alone is don't go camping alone. Take somebody with you. Don't start out camping alone. I feel like you gotta build up some confidence in your skills and your ability to camp and deal with situations, and the best way to do that is with other people. I'm going to broach a controversial subject here and dance lightly around it, and hopefully it doesn't turn into a whole political conversation. But the first response I always get, or I always see when someone posts a little anxious about camping by myself, is get a gun. And my response to that is manyfold, but if it makes you feel better, I'm not telling you to carry one or to not carry one. I am telling you that if you don't know how to use it safely, if you're not trained how to use it, you're more likely to hurt yourself than defend yourself. That's statistically true. Our friends in Canada, Great Britain, and Australia camp without guns all the time, and Australia has spiders the size of your head. So for me personally, bear spray is what I carry. Effective against 2- and 4-legged animals if need be. I'm less likely to permanently injure myself in an accidental situation. I think it's better to have something that is a little bit non-lethal, that requires less skill and has less lethal consequences for accidental use. To be honest with you, the most common issue that will arise while you're camping by yourself is boredom. That's more of a concern for me these days than anxiety. So a few tips for that: bring a book and a light to read it with, otherwise you can't when it gets dark. I like to bring my Switch or my Steam Deck. It's also, when you're camping by yourself, is a great time to practice your outdoorsy skills. So like whittle things, process firewood. I like to build bushcraft stuff like chairs, shelters, stuff like that. You can go for a walk, or most obviously, you obviously rode there on a motorcycle. So if you're bored and you haven't been drinking, go for a ride. Ride your motorcycle, explore the area. That's a great way to pass the time. Hopefully there's a tip or two here that'll work for you to help you alleviate your anxiety as you make your journey into the woods by yourself and take that next step in your motorcycle camping or just camping progression. As you progress in your journey into the world of motorcycle camping, don't forget that Moto Camp Nerd has the world's largest carefully curated selection of motorcycle camping specific gear. Everything you need, from cooking to sleeping to shelter to first aid to firewood processing, even gear and beyond, is all available on the website motocampnerd.com. So pop over and check it out, because Moto Camp Nerd has all the gear you need so you can pack small and camp easy.